Welcome to Civil Dissent. These podcasts are about you. Ron and I are speaking as citizen activists, reacting to the explosive events of the time affecting us all. In the spirit of the fairness doctrine, we will air conflicting views, and you will determine what is valid. We will provide you with leads and contacts for government, business, community organizations, and more for you to take action. In democracy, information and participation are the key. Use your key, your voice, for a better world. Between Dr. Ian and myself, we have traveled to more than a dozen countries, studied political science, anthropology, communications, and more. We differ on our views, but agree friendship is more important than differences, and we invite you to feel the same way. Let's begin by checking in on what has recently caught our attention. Ron, what has your attention and why?
Well, I have been reading books. This is summertime, and the living is easy, and I'm going to pretend I'm in a hammock for the moment, which is just fine with me as the weather warms. And I want to recommend just a few books for our very, very literate audience. The first that comes to mind is The Bluest Eye by the great Toni Morrison. Another is this produced the famous television series Handmaid's Tale, which has gotten great reviews, and it's very timely and appropriate. That's by Margaret Allwood and Renee Nault. I'd also like to recommend To Kill a Mockingbird by the great Harper Lee. And you could cheat a little bit and go back to the movie with the very handsome Gregory Peck, and I know that there are several million young girls who watch that and they want to be Scout, and I totally get it. And finally, one of my favorite books of all time, it's Kite Runner, which is by Khalid Hosseini, and it is also a movie, and this is a wonderful tension-filled book and on-the-ground portrait of life in Afghanistan. Now, what might they have in common? Because they really do come from very different places. They do have one thing in common, and that is that they've all been pulled off of library shelves around the United States in the last month. And they are either banned in particular libraries, or they go to a PTA committee that decides on the value of these books. And so I would suggest, since this is about gaining and controlling your power, have a look at these books and you decide, rather than the local yeehaw school lady who wants to purify your child's mind. Enjoy these books over the summer. Enjoy your critical thinking and enjoy your journey into literature. And that's what I've been doing for the last week. I hope you do too. And how about you, Ticia? What's been going on in your world?
Well, first, let me react to what you've just said. I think all those books are wonderful, and I do hope people do read them. And I'm sad to hear what's been pulled off the shelves. However, I do also feel that one of the things that's wonderful about this country is that it's so diversified, in fact, that you could have one state disagree with another in terms of what should be on their shelves. And yet, still, people would have access to them, whether it's the internet or whether it's ordering them by Amazon, etc. So I'm not so concerned that a state or a city or a particular school district does something like that, given the fact that there's still access to them all, thank God. And I think those are the things that we have to protect, that access continues, but at the same time give individual rights to the cultures of particular communities, and to some extent have some respect, even if one disagrees. But on the other hand, you asked about, what's been going on with me, and I must tell you that this weekend I attended an amazing memorial for an amazing woman, Tracy Connor, who's a puppeteer and headed the Michelle Puppets. She brought so much joy to this community and to many other communities with her puppets and her shows, all of which were issue-based, quite frankly. In any event, the way that it was done was extraordinary because there was a parade of her puppets, and this was at the memorial, and then the puppets greeted people that were there, and then the puppets wished everybody. And that means you too, audience, a big puppet hug. And if anybody's going to do anything, that is an example of a life well spent.
It certainly sounds that way, and though I've never met her, I have read in the paper about her, and her work goes on in the local community. She was a local hero, and her work will continue to enlighten, inform, and inspire the next generation of children and people of special needs. And we need many more like Tracy here locally and around the country. And I believe this week we're going to be talking about immigration. And as we are doing this program, we note that the number of immigrants coming into the United States has seriously declined. And some of the places where they're permitted to sleep, some of the shelters in the United States, a lot of their beds are gone wanting lately, and we've been getting a lot of cooperation from the government of Mexico in terms of treating these people who are trying to start a new life more humanely. I think that a few weeks ago, the president sent 1,500 National Guards people to the border to try to control things, and I think that that was an error. I would have sent 1,500 immigration attorneys and some jurists as well, some judges as well, to process these people who are escaping hardship, escaping tyranny, escaping torture, gangs, drugs, rapists, etc. And I very much oppose their image as frightening people, that some of them are indeed rapists, and they are kidnappers, and they're drug dealers, and they're what was the term that was used? Oh yes, bad hombres, I recall. And in fact, the vast majority are here to start a new life, get a better life for their children, and guess what? Go to work and pay taxes, and hopefully this or the next Congress, maybe this Congress still, I have high hopes that immigration reform will be such that they can work their way into citizenship. We need more employees in the United States to the tune of 5 million. And just briefly, this week, a lot of agricultural workers are leaving Immokalee in South Florida, where they pick tomatoes, because apparently if you are illegal, quote unquote, you can be deported, and a person like myself, who's a white guy, would be in legal jeopardy if I were to drive them even to a doctor, and it turned out that they were illegal. I too could be charged with a crime. So anyway, it's a very difficult issue. There are many opinions on it. We're a nation of immigrants, and I say the more the merrier. I don't fear them. I welcome them. Ticia?
Well, I think the key word that you used there several times was escape, escape, escape. My feeling is, even though I think we should clearly clean up the Act on Immigration, and because the system is essentially broken, I also feel that these people are responsible for cleaning things up themselves in their own country, for future generations in their countries, for the relatives that they left behind, which they never should have left behind, to tell you the truth, be it women, be it children, be it wives, be it parents, etc. The fact is, they should be cleaning up their country. As far as Mexico is concerned, Mexico in particular, which was able to throw Spain out and declare its independence. Spain, when it was a world power, they threw out with basically picks and shovels, and now they can't handle gangs. Give me a break. Clean up the corruption, so that your people can stay at home. because it's really not our job and shouldn't be our job. Because to tell you the truth, it's now, according to the National Immigration Law Center, it's over 5 million undocumented people in this country, if not more. Well, let me ask a question. At what point, does it become an invasion? At what point? Certainly, Ukraine was not invaded by 5 million Russians, for God's sakes.
Well, maybe this is a good time to catch our breath, take a break, and we're going to be right back in just a moment.
On our website, we are hosting a competition. Send in your most meaningful quote, including if you make one up, and we will use the winning quote at the end of the show and send you a $25 Amazon gift card. You can submit more than one quote, and we will give away up to 3 Amazon gift cards. Submit quotes by August 1st, 2023.
We're back, and thanks for hanging out. We are discussing immigration in this program. Again, I'm Ron Haben, and I'm with my friend Ticia Bauza, and on we go. The question is immigration and the 4 to 5 million Latin Americans and some others coming to the country, is that an invasion? No, it's not an invasion. The invasion would be if people were here to do us harm, and comparing this group of immigrants to Russian soldiers coming with tanks and weapons of mass destruction with ill will and ill intent in their hearts are completely different ends of humanity. These are human beings escaping the very tyranny that, if you want to include Russia, the very tyranny that Putin would support and enjoy. And no, I don't think that these women and children, and in some cases men, have the ability or the power or the wherewithal to fight the gangs. Why? Because many of their governments have given up on fighting the gangs, and they're the ones with the guns. So if the formal military and police stand by and let the gangs control the streets, well, these people have no choice. And the idea of that's the stick and the carrot is America, where you can begin a new life, you work hard, you contribute to society, and you become ultimately an American citizen. Well, that story is as old and as progressive as the United States itself. And the great symbol is the Lady in the Harbor, welcoming immigrants of all varieties, and we have nothing to fear but unemployment. So they're coming here, they want to work, and in terms of supporting their own countries, many are sending money home. But I, for one, welcome them, and they're not a threat. They are a help to our economy. Bring it on. I love every bit of it.
Do you have any idea how racist that attitude is? Oh, we need workers. Well, if we need workers, we should be providing them a decent means to enter the country, not setting up a system that puts them in a situation where they've got to try to traverse a desert, put their lives in danger to get here. Because it is totally racist to take the attitude, oh, well, we should let them in because we need workers. Well, then make it possible for them to come in properly. In another case, you just made the case for armed citizens, for an armed population, why people should have the right to bear arms, because none of this would be happening in any of these countries that we're getting immigrants from if they had the right to bear arms and protect themselves when their government became, an object of tyranny and ineffective in dealing with crime. As far as what's crossing the border, clearly we now know it's not just Mexicans. They've clocked it basically at about 10,000 Chinese. and hundreds, if not thousands, of Haitians and Indians and Africans. It's ridiculous. Now, I'll tell you what I do think. I do think we're missing a tremendous opportunity, because I think those that have crossed the border and that we have let in, at some point, many of them really wish they could return to their countries. And if they ever do, they should be armed. They should be armed with knowledge in their own language of our Constitution, of our Bill of Rights, of what it means. And all of that education should be provided for people coming into this country, period, whether they become citizens or not, whether they stay or not. It is sad if we don't educate them. Sad enough we don't educate our own anymore these days.
Well, I agree with most of what you say, so I'm going to have to check myself in somewhere after the program. And yes, they should. Immigrants should be permitted to a better way of coming into the United States. And we can take an example from, say Governor DeSantis, who is very good about commandeering aircraft that are very comfortable, and they are being flown to vacation islands in Massachusetts. They're being flown to New York City. They're being flown to California. And yes, I think Governor DeSantis is onto something. And yes, rather than traversing 2,000 miles in the face of natural and human tragedy and violence, fly them all in. I totally agree. And of course, if they want to return, there's nothing on the books at the moment that says they can't. They can return anytime they want, and that's on the books. But in terms of arming people, no, they don't need arms. They need to escape and start new lives. It says nothing to arm these people who are really not even asking to be armed. That seems like an arbitrary policy, and it doesn't at all suggest more armaments. It means bringing them into the United States, welcoming them as an asset and as friends, and the implication of any sort of racism vis-a-vis workers. I do know an example of my own grandmother who came here from Ukraine, and she started work on an assembly line in a paper box factory in Illinois. And as far as I know, they never asked her walking in on the first day to be the CEO or the COO of the company. 3 minutes. Well, okay. So I think ultimately we both have good ideas about how to bring people in. I think that you recognize their humanity. We agree that they should be treated well when they're in the United States, and the idea of educating them in terms of how to live a life in a democratic institution like our country, like the United States, is a very good one. I think you make a point about a lot of our own people who aren't taught civics very much anymore, don't know too much about the 3 branches of government, and some of them, a lot of Americans don't even know who the vice president is. So yes, more education, you're absolutely right. And an easier way to traverse our borders, absolutely right. And as Ronald Reagan once said to Mr. Gorbachev, and I would say to our border on Mexico, Mr. Biden, tear down that wall.
Ron, as always, your humanity and warmth and compassion amazes me and delights me. And they're lucky. People are lucky that someone like you takes their side. Really, it warms my heart. It definitely softens my feelings very, very often. Thank you. But I must also say that if this is to be solved, we have to start considering the fact that the Canadians use a merit system. Perhaps we should use a merit system. And even though Puerto Ricans are considered U.S. citizens, because frankly, what people don't realize is they've pretty much fought in every American war and deserve that. Nonetheless, my mother, who's from Puerto Rico, started out in a factory, as did my aunt, etc. And because of them, I have a better life, and I understand and appreciate that. And you do have very good points in terms of that they're doing this really for the future of their children. But in my view, I still think they must take responsibility for their country. I don't say we arm them. I say that the policies in their countries should allow them to have arms to protect themselves. At this point, it's not just the United States with the problem. Apparently, the UE, according to I-24 from Israel Television, their immigration problem is up 300% in the Mediterranean. Things are not good. 10,000 Chinese coming into this country, very questionable. Very questionable.
Well, I would simply close by saying that our own Defense Department in the United States is suggesting that climate change is going to increase migration and immigration throughout the world, and the Defense Department sees that as in the future of not an attack, but certainly a burden on the United States and more developed countries around the world. That's their position, but in the near future, climate change is going to be another factor in addition to oligopoly and authoritarianism. And so we have more of this to look forward to. So how can we benevolently, benignly, and in a helpful, nursing way bring new people in to an established culture? So I'm going to say goodbye and turn it over to Ticia. And thank you for listening. And here she is. We'll see you very soon.
Okay, one more point of clarification. Invasion does not necessarily require arms, okay? And you have that throughout species in the world. But anyway, I'd like to give a shout out and a thanks to the San Julian Cafe on Morris Avenue, to Castle Door Studios, which hosts us, to Winter Park Library, and in particular, Jamie Zorn, who is the public service librarian. Also a shout out to the Gelato Store on Park Avenue and Cross Fitness on Fairbanks. Thank you so much for being so supportive and encouraging.
And we are all in Winter Park, Florida. And until next time, we thank you for listening to Civil Dissent, and we'll see you soon.
Okay.
Thank you.
I'd just like to remind you, you have the capacity to cooperate and organize as an individual. You have the capacity to inspire. You have the capacity to contribute. Do it. Go to our contact page and let your voice be heard.
Thank you for listening to Civil Dissent. If you agreed with a view you've heard today, or if you have thoughts of your own, go to our website, civildissent.com, to find references where you can make a real difference. Take action, and see you next time on Civil Dissent.